Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to our Teaching in the UK webinar. We appreciate your time today, and hopefully you'll find what we have to say about teaching in the UK helpful and useful. And we're going to be accessible to all of you after this webinar for Q&A at the end of the session, if you've got any sort of burning questions you want to ask us at the end. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. We'll get started. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Emma Roberts and I'm the Overseas Director for Teach-In. We're based here in Australia and I'm joined by my colleague, Catherine Gibson. Kath, give us a wave. Thank you.
Hi.
So Kath and I run the Overseas Office of Teach-In, and our job here is to make sure that any teacher that comes along that wants to work in the UK, we provide them with the best service and the best possible jobs that are bespoke to your individual needs. So that's our aim. We're really proud of the business we've built here. We have won a number of awards, best workplaces. We've won Education Investor Awards, but also what we're very proud of is our 5-star reviews on Google as well. So you can check those out if you'd like to, just by following Teach-In. So that's us. So let's move on to the next slide. So Teach-In here in Australia, that's our brand, but we are part of a larger organisation called Education Placement Group. And depending on where you decide you want to teach with us, you will be working under different brands. So in the north of the country, if you decide to go to somewhere like Leeds or Manchester, then you will be working for our Just Teachers brand. If you decide you want to work in the south of the country, places like Wales or Southampton, Brighton, those kind of areas, even Buckinghamshire and Hertfordshire, you'll be working under the Supply Desk brand. And then if you work in London, then our London-centric brand is Teach London. But we're all part of the same group. We also have a teacher training company. So we train teachers in the UK specifically. That company is called Equalitas as well. So we're quite a big organisation, but who you'll be dealing with here is Catherine and myself as Teach-In, and we will be sharing your details with our relevant teams in those particular brand and areas. Over to you, Kath.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, and look, Emma and I are both teachers. We've both lived and worked over in the UK. We've been doing this for a long, long time. So hopefully any questions you have, any concerns regarding teaching in the UK, we'll be your consultants and we'll help you through that process. So getting into the how the year is structured in a British school year. They start their year after their long summer holiday, which is in early September. So really great time to head over is for the beginning of the British school year. Lots of opportunities all over the country where you can take on a full year contract. That starts usually around the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of September. Every term in the UK has a half-term break, so you never work for more than 6 weeks before you have at least 1 week off. So starting in September, having a week off in October, and then going back for a final 6 weeks and breaking usually around somewhere between the 16th and the 20th of December. You have 2 weeks off over Christmas and New Year, and then you come back for the beginning of what they call the spring term, which is usually around the 5th of January. You would be able to pick up a nice contract at that time of the year as well that will take you through until the end of the British school year. So you could arrive and start in early January. You would work for 6 weeks. You'd have a week off in February, which is their February half-term break, and then you'd work for another 6 weeks before having 2 weeks off around Easter time. The third term, term 3, starts after Easter, whenever that falls. So usually around the middle of April, you'll go back. You'll work for 6 weeks. You will have a week off in May, and then the final 6 weeks of the school year will take you up to around the 20th of July. And then they break for their long summer holiday from end of July right through until the beginning of September. So loads of opportunities for travel, 13 weeks where you're away from the classroom, lots of seasons and adventures you can have at different times of the year. And there are also what they call bank holiday weekends. So every public holiday in the UK falls on a Monday, so you get lots of long weekends as well. So lots of opportunities to travel. And if you're wanting to pick up a contract, then they're the good times to be available for the start of the terms.
Amazing. Thanks, Kath.
And we work with, as Emma mentioned, we're a large group, education placement group, with schools right up and down the country and into Wales. So we work with thousands of schools, government or state schools. We work with independent schools. We work with a lot of faith schools as well. So we partner with Catholic diocese and Church of England schools, of which you don't need to be of that faith to work in them. You just need to be open to the ethos of the school. We also work with what are called academies, often large trusts of schools that are located in different parts of the country or within a location. And they can either be government run or they can be privately funded. They are often run a little bit differently to a general government school. Yeah, and then we also have the same sort of grammar or selective schools, and also schools with special education need provisions. So you could work in any of those sorts of environments. You let us know your preferences and we work with you to try and find a really good fit.
Great, thank you. So what type of work options do we have? Well, we have usually the main two options we have is a long-term contract and then our guaranteed payment scheme, which is our form of casual teaching or supply teaching. The direct placement is really for those teachers that don't qualify for a visa in their own right and require sponsorship, which is very specific. So if you fall into that category, we can have an offline conversation about that. But I'd like to focus on the long-term contract and the guaranteed payment scheme today. So long-term contract, that means that we would find you a position prior to your arrival in the UK. The way that we facilitate that is we ask you to fill out a CV template, we get referee details from you, but the main thing we ask you to do is complete a video interview using our Spark Hire video platform. And we ask you 10 questions relating to the teaching standards. You complete that video in your own time. And once it's done, we put everything together in what we call a profile. And that profile is used as a resource to show schools in the UK in advance of your arrival. So schools will, so we will show schools that in your sort of chosen location area, in with the sort of teaching areas that you've asked us about, so specific to you and what you want. And schools will come back to us and they will say, look, we've had a look at this person's video interview. We've looked at their profile and their references. We'd really like to interview them for, let's say, if it's a primary school teacher, a year 4 role. We would then come to you and give you all the details about the school, the location, link to the school website, and as much information about the vacancy as we can. If you're happy with that, we then go ahead and organise a formal interview between you and the school. So the school then have the opportunity to ask you any questions they might have, but it's also your opportunity to ask any questions you might have. And we do interview preparation prior to any interview. You'll be notified and you'll be given a mock interview session prior to any interview so that you're best prepared to put your best foot forward. So if everything goes well and the school like you and you like them, they would offer you the opportunity. And then if both parties are happy, you would accept the job. Best times to go for a long-term job opportunity, as Catherine alluded to, would be the start of the school year, so September. And then the other popular time to go would be for that early January start, which means you'd have to arrive between Christmas and New Year to start, because the second term does start first week in January. So they're the best 2 times to go to get a long-term opportunity. And the idea of the long-term contract would be that you're going to be knowing where you're going every day. So you've got fixed costs in terms of transport, for classroom management and your own professional development. It's going to be offering you career progression. You'll have a mentor that's assigned to you. As soon as you've had the interview, you'll get somebody that you can be in contact with prior to arrival, but also will be mentoring you when you first arrive in the UK. So that's our profile to interview pathway. It's been very successful. The video interviews are very powerful in enticing schools to interview, and that is our most popular route to teaching in the UK as well. So that's your long-term contract. The other option is to do casual work. And what we call casual work in the UK is supply teaching. And what we can offer you there is what we call our guaranteed payment scheme. So that means that we're confident we can provide you with work on any given day. And if we can't, we're guaranteeing we'll pay you 3 out of 5 days a week. So it gives you the comfort that if you choose to do supply teaching and you're worried about, oh no, what if I'm not going to get enough work? Well, we're saying we're going to pay you 3 out of 5 days, whether we can find you work or not. So it just gives you comfort to know that. So that is a flexible option, but it's also secure knowing you're going to earn money. If you wanted to sort of go on a little sort of have Friday off or a long weekend, then guaranteed payment scheme would afford you that opportunity to do that sort of flexible work arrangement. We can offer guaranteed payment scheme in all our branch locations, and there's places like Cardiff in Wales, Southampton, Brighton, Buckinghamshire, Hertfordshire, Leeds, Manchester. I'm probably forgetting a few, but we can talk to you specifically at the time when you decide about your location, where we can offer you that guaranteed payment scheme. In all of our, whether it's a long-term contract or guaranteed payment scheme contract, we will always try and connect you with like-minded individuals. So it's not uncommon that you may be placed in a long-term contract in the same school as another teacher or same location. So in that case, we would always connect you with those people, obviously with everyone's permission, so that you're not feeling like you're on your own and you're feeling part of our teaching community and you can meet colleagues prior to starting your opportunity. Same with the guaranteed payment scheme. So we'll move on to the curriculum now.
Yeah, so good news is that it's more similar than different to what you're used to. So if for Australian, New Zealand, Canadian teachers, the curriculum, we take a lot from the British national curriculum in developing ours. So you won't find that it's a million miles from what you're used to. The school years are set up pretty similarly. So in their early childhood, they call it nursery. It's usually 0 to 3-year-olds. Often the nursery is attached to the primary school. And if you are an early childhood teacher and you want to work within that nursery foundation stage, there is certainly lots of work opportunities. So let your friends know about that. You can teach in that nursery environment as a qualified nursery teacher. Primary schools are either Key Stage 1 or Key Stage 2. Sometimes the school only has Key Stage 1 in it, which is like your kindergarten, Year 1 and Year 2, so reception Year 1 and Year 2 in the UK. And then Key Stage 2 are your 9 to 11-year-olds, so it's Years 3, 4, 5 and 6. So you can either have an infant school that just has Key Stage 1 and then an upper primary school, junior school often called, or you can have it all in one like we're used to over here. In England, they qualify generally as Key Stage 1 or Key Stage 2 specialists. So if you have preferences, let us know and we can try and get you into the year level that you feel most comfortable in. In the secondary sector, you have Key Stage 3, which is Years 7 and 8, and then Key Stage 4, which is Years 9 to 11. You're looking at 11 to 16-year-olds, and some schools only cater for 11 to 16-year-olds. At the end of that Key Stage 4, they do their GCSEs, which are their General Certificate of Secondary Education, and then they can go on to do their sixth form, which is like Years 12 and 13, where they gain their A levels, which will allow them entry into university level. So sixth forms can be within a secondary school or they can be separate. So yeah, they often specialize in less subjects than over here, but in more detail. So great opportunities to teach within the national curriculum.
Okay, so in terms of teacher pay, it really depends on your qualifications, your full-time experience as a teacher, the location you're looking for, and then there are allowances. So if you are, we will always aim to get you, if you go into a long-term contract, we will always aim to get you paid on the UK teacher British pay scale, depending on the amount of experience you have. There's something called qualified teacher status, which Catherine will go into in the next slide. If you qualify for that, you will definitely be eligible to take promotional positions if you're going to stay longer term, but it's equally fine not to qualify for British qualified teacher status and work as an overseas trained teacher as well. So salary range in the UK starts at about £32,000, and the top of the pay scale is currently around £43,000. So it's a scale that goes from M1, main scale 1, to main scale 6. So in your first 2 years of teaching, if you're a beginning teacher, you'd be paid at M1, which is the first 2 years of teaching. You'd be classed as an early career teacher. If you're 6 years or more, then you'd be at the top of the pay scale, and you'd be getting paid at the top of the main scale. If you were just doing a standard classroom role, there are allowances for extra responsibilities. So if you took on a head of department role, or you were going to do something specialised, then you could gain extra pay by negotiation with the school. And there are certainly allowances for those extra bits and pieces. So there is a link in this presentation you can see there to the British National Pay Scale, so you can have a look at that. The presentation will be emailed to you tomorrow or the following day, so you can look up that information. So the British pay scale is everything other than London. London is more expensive to live and work, so there is an extra allowance on top of the standard pay for living in London, depending on whether you're inner, outer, or fringe of London. It's not a huge amount, but it's to offset the costs of the cost of living, because accommodation can be very expensive. So there are extra allowances if you choose London as a location, but everywhere else it's the same pay scale.
So as Emma mentioned, British qualified teacher status is what British teachers gain when they gain their qualifications. So they get a certificate, they get a teaching number, and it's eligible for British trained teachers, but also for some international trained teachers as well. So like Emma mentioned, you do not need to have British qualified teacher status in order to work in the UK. You can work as an overseas trained teacher for up to 4 years without any issue. Who's eligible from the international group of teachers? Well, if you've moved from being a provisional teacher and you've gained your proficiency in your state or territory or province or area, then you are able to then apply and gain British qualified teacher status. Good news is that it's free to apply. Bad news is that it takes absolutely ages to get your teaching number and your certificate. So talking up to sort of 6 to 12 months to gain that. The reason that is because recently, in the last couple of years, the British government has allowed a lot more nationalities and countries to apply for QTS and to become eligible for it. So there's been a mass application. So as soon as you think you might want to head over to the UK, and if you are proficient and have gained your proficiency, then we would urge you to do that as your first step. But we are happy as long as you've done your online application and applied for QTS, we will see you as a QTS eligible teacher. You don't need to have it. Most of the teachers we work with are coming straight out of university or close to have just graduated. So they are more than able to go and work in the UK as an overseas trained teacher. It's a nice to have, but it's not a necessity. If you are planning on being in the UK beyond 4 years, then you will need to have gained QTS within that period of time. And you can do that through a 12-week assessment only course whilst you're in the UK through the school that you're working in at the time. So after 2 years, you can look into getting QTS over in the UK if you haven't been eligible for it prior. So talk to us about applying for QTS. We can send you can see the link is down there, but we can send you that information and talk with you and see if you're eligible for it.
Okay, so visa types. The main type of visa that I'd like to discuss this evening is the Youth Mobility Scheme visa. Obviously, if you have a British passport, that means you have UK working rights. If you don't have a British passport, then you need to be eligible for UK working rights in order to work in the UK. So most of the teachers that we work with qualify for the Youth Mobility Scheme visa. And that visa allows you to live and work in the UK for a period of 2 years initially, with the option to extend for a third year once you're there. It is a one-off visa, so you can only get it once. If you've already had it previously, you can't apply multiple times. You need to be between the ages of 18 and apply before you turn 36, so 18 to 35 age range. You need to make sure that you don't have any children that are dependent, or you're financially responsible for any children to qualify for the visa. If all of those things are okay, then the process is that you apply online for the visa. Then you have to pay the associated fees, and that is a visa application fee and 2 years of immigration health surcharge. The immigration health surcharge is effectively the British government asking you to pay for 2 years of healthcare up front before you arrive in the UK. So that means when you're in the UK, if you needed an emergency ambulance because you broke your leg or you had to go to the doctor for some reason, you would be fully covered by the National Health Scheme, so you wouldn't have to pay for any of those services because you've already paid as part of your visa to be covered by the National Health Scheme. So on the slide there, we have the costs in pounds, but in today's terms, in Australian dollars, if you convert, the visa application fee and the 2 years of immigration health surcharge is going to roughly cost you around 3,500 Australian dollars, depending on the exchange rate at the time. So once you've paid your fees, you then have to attend a biometric appointment in person at your closest visa office, and there's one in every capital city. At the visa appointment, you have to prove further supporting documents, and they are a passport that's not going to expire within 6 months of arrival in the UK. And the second document is a bank statement going back 28 days, showing you've got savings of equivalent of 2,530 in savings pounds. So that's around 5,000 Australian dollars. And it has to be a stable bank balance. There can't be deposits coming into the account to bring it up to 5,000 during that 28-day period of that bank statement. It has to be a stable bank balance of roughly 5,000 or more in that bank account. So once you've satisfied those requirements, they would do a photograph, fingerprints, and an eye scan to collect your biometric data. You will then be processed. Sounds like you're going to be in prison, doesn't it? But they process your visa. You will then receive a letter saying that your visa has been approved, and there will be an approval number, and your passport will you'll be eligible to enter the UK with your passport on the date that the visa states. So whatever your visa letter states is the date you're able to enter the UK, and that will be based on what you put on your application. So you won't be able to enter any time before that. You can enter on or after, but not before the start date of the visa. So you will also then have access to set up a UK visa and immigration account. And once you go through border and immigration for the first time, you'll be able to go into that account and you'll be able to see your youth mobility visa in e-visa format, in an electronic format. That will be linked to your passport. So when you travel around Europe and go on lovely holidays, you'll be able to come back through immigration and go through the smart gates because your passport will be flagged as having a valid right to work attached to it. 3 months before that 2 years expires, you are eligible to apply for another year. But of course, you have to pay another visa application fee and another 1 year of immigration health surcharge. You can apply for the visa anytime within 6 months of arrival in the UK, not before. And something to note is that the visa office for your biometric appointment, they don't operate on public holidays or weekends. So we will generally advise you to apply just prior to school holidays so that you can apply and go for that appointment in the school holidays. So if you're working full time, you don't have to take time off work to go and have your biometric appointment. So we provide that support. What I would say is that make sure you have all your ducks in a row with all your documentation really sorted and you know what you need. There's nothing worse than lodging an application and having a rejection or request for more information. It can tie visas up for, sometimes we've had teachers, that things are tied up for 6 months and they have to make appeals and everything. So if you're unsure of anything, Catherine and I are here to support you through the visa process, but just be very thorough before you lodge anything with the UK Border and Immigration. The other visas that we do sometimes come across are ancestry. That's for people who have a grandparent that was born in the UK, and they hold a British passport. There's spousal visas. There is that sponsorship visa. So there are other visa categories, which we won't go into this evening. But if you feel like you're not within the Youth Mobility Scheme visa category and you feel like you might be one of those other ones, we can talk to you specifically about your particular circumstances and the visa you think you may be eligible for. And if you have a British passport, happy days. You'll be fully covered by the National Health Scheme. You won't need to pay any immigration health surcharge. You can walk in and out of the country and work in whatever capacity you like. So that's the visa process.
And I think, more than anything, we understand from years of working with people heading over to the UK that beyond getting a job, you need a lot of help and a lot of support because you're heading to the other side of the world. A lot of people are straight out of uni. This might be your first job. It's certainly going to be your first job in the British national curriculum, and you may not have even lived outside of home before. So we understand that, and we work with you, 6 to 12 months before you plan to leave often, and we stay in contact with you while you're in the UK, but we also make sure that you have a UK consultant who's attached to you once we know whether you're starting as a guaranteed supply or a long-term contract teacher. So all of that's really important. We understand, that there'll be things that you'll feel nervous about and need support with, especially in those first couple of months that you're over in the UK. So big thing people ask about is accommodation. And whilst we don't have teacher housing, we do what we can in terms of support and advice. Sometimes it might be that we have other teachers starting at the same school that we can pair you with as a potential flatmate. We might have teachers already in the UK that have rooms available, or it might be that within the school that you are teaching, there are people who are subletting rooms and things like that. If not, it would be directing you to the right places to look for accommodation, shareroom.co.uk. Most people start their transition to the UK with an Airbnb, so that they can then go and do some viewings when they arrive over there. We'll let you know what locations are good to live in, where will be good in terms of transport getting to and from your school. But yeah, certainly be very aware that there are scams, and that anyone who's looking to take an overseas person's application for accommodation before they arrive should be looked at dubiously, because generally you have to be in country and view in person and show that you have UK working rights to gain accommodation. So you have to start off in something transitory and then move into your rental accommodation. Like Emma said, we've got visa support available, so any questions in regards to applying through the application process and getting over to the UK. Whilst you're in the UK, because we are a teacher training company over there as well, we can offer lots of individual bespoke professional development as required. There are many social events as well that you can be invited to, networking events in the term time where older teachers who've come over a year or two ago, or teachers that have arrived at the same time of you can meet. We have an induction day when you arrive in the UK before you start at your school, where you'll get to know your consultant, other teachers, and understand what you need to be aware of before you get started. You'll make sure you have a mentor within your school, especially if you're a new graduate teacher, so that you've got a go-to person beyond just your senior leadership team. You'll need help with sort of banking. National insurance number is something that you need to get, so we can give you information on that. We do help with some of the cost of your flight over to the UK if you're successful in securing a 2-term contract or signing our guaranteed supply contract, so we can talk to you about what that looks like and what the criteria is. And we are aware that a lot of people head over with a partner who may not even be a teacher, so we could maybe look at getting them teacher assistant work, cover supervisor work, or if you've got friends that are teachers or a partner who's a teacher, we'll try and find you work in locations where you can all get to your schools and live together, or ideally in the same school. So we understand all of that, and because you'll have your own consultant, Emma or myself, we will make sure that we're here and available to you as you get organised.
So like Kath said, we do have social events and we want you to feel part of our teacher community. So we do hold that initial induction event, which Catherine spoke about. We do have regular social events, which you'll be invited to, and you can be as involved or not involved as you want to be. Our teachers have certainly provided really positive feedback. There's couples that have found travelling companions, people who have set up quiz nights, lots of different things that have happened through our social events. So we want you to feel really connected and part of our community.
Yeah, and I mean, the benefits of having an overseas teaching experience include obviously career progression. You'll be experiencing the British National Curriculum, which is, taught all over the world. You'll come back to your home country with new ideas, and you'll certainly see opportunities whilst you're in the UK to take on additional responsibilities if you're doing well. It's a system where you can progress quite quickly. So great opportunities within your career to work in the UK. As I mentioned previously, there's professional development opportunities, so you can stay up to date with that. You will certainly build a really great network of people, both British people working in schools, but also the overseas teachers that have all come over, and they'll probably be people that you connect with, collaborate with, possibly work with throughout your lives. So that's a fantastic resource, and personally a great situation. Because you're working in the British National Curriculum, you're also in a position to work over in international schools. So generally, if you've got 2 years of experience in the British system, you can then stepping stone over to an international placement in Europe, or in the Americas, or UAE, or in Asia. So great opportunities in British international schools all over the world. Yeah, and obviously the travel opportunities. I think, the reason that most people think about teaching in the UK as a viable option is because the curriculum's the same, the culture is very similar, but also, that opportunity to be in Europe's doorstep and travel as much as you can. And as we talked about earlier, there's 13 weeks a year to travel. There's also those long weekends. So lots of opportunities. Our teachers are often traveling together as a group. They're organising things at our networking events and taking off and ticking off all those things on their bucket list. So that's, fantastic.
And if you want to follow us on social media, we obviously have Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and obviously our handles are down below. And as I said, you'll get a copy of this video in the next couple of days, so you can follow us on socials. Obviously, we post things about accommodation, job opportunities, all sorts of things. So drop us a follow if you would like to.
And if you haven't already had a look on our website, there are loads of blogs about everything from travel opportunities to curriculum to looking out for scams to opportunities in different locations. So that's a great place to look as well.
Yeah, it is a great resource. We've got so much information on there. It would probably take I reckon, a good month to get through everything that we've got on that website. So it's fantastic resource for everyone to use. So we'll move into questions now. It looks like we've got a question in the Q&A as well as one in the chat. So if I can just divert everyone to the chat section potentially. Let's go to the chat, and people can ask their questions there. So Patrine, will you be qualified if you are over the age of 35? Patrine, we would need to contact you specifically and find out your skill set for us to be able to answer that question. Because you're over 35, you may be eligible for a sponsorship, but we won't know that until we have a chat with you to find out what your teachable areas are. So we will contact you. You can respond to the email that you'll get from us with the video and book a call with us. That's what we'd encourage everyone to do, actually, is when you get the video from us, there will be an option to book a personalized call with Kath or myself, and we can then find out and bespoke your experience specific to what you're looking for and give you advice that's specific to you. So,
and Dorothy,
okay.
you've said, is this also okay for non-Australian citizens? Similar situation to Patrine. It's really going to be about what you're qualified to teach, what visa options there might be, whether sponsorship's an option or whether there's another visa category that will be viable for you. So do make sure that when we send this recorded version, you book a call with us and we can take it from there. There's also a visa called a high performance or high potential visa that is something, you know, worldwide. If you've been in one of the top 50 universities of the world in the last 5 years, then there is a 2-year pathway into living and working in the UK. I think in Australia it might be the University of Melbourne and maybe University of Queensland in the last 5 years, and then other countries have opportunities as well.
Sarah's typing a message, so we'll see what Sarah says.
I think I'm booked to have a chat with you tomorrow, Sarah, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, and look, there are no stupid questions. Don't ever feel worried about whether it's too early to start a conversation. If it's something that you're mulling over and thinking I might want to do in a year or 2 years, we still love to have a chat with you because we can give you some ideas and options, and we can work out a bit of a timetable as to when to start doing the compliance side of things. Sarah, I can see you said, do schools ever offer part-time long-term contracts, or would I need to do supply teaching if I want to work part-time? It's a question we get asked a fair bit. In all honesty, without good savings, you probably want to be working as much as you can during the term time to afford the lifestyle that will allow you then to travel in the holidays. But if you have good savings and you really just want to do part-time work, it's more than likely that you're best suited to a supply contract. It's not often that we get a 3 or a 4 day contract coming through in a long-term capacity. It tends to happen for people once they've been at a school for a while, and then there might be opportunities for them to job share, but it's very rare that we'll get a request for someone to do 3 days. They usually get snapped up within schools, but we can always look for it. If we hear about it, we can go with that. But in the interim, we can look at maybe starting on guaranteed supply. Would you say the same, Em?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of that we have been able to place people part-time, but it's not something that comes up prolifically. And as Kath said, if you are wanting to sort of do part-time, then doing a guaranteed payment scheme will get you in front of a variety of schools. And then those schools may say, oh, well, actually, we've got a part-time role and we'd love you to start that part-time role. So there could be opportunities. Yeah.
Just be aware that with supply work, you don't get paid as much as you do in a long-term contract in the UK, and you don't have quite as much confirmation of work on a daily basis as you do. So if you are in any way requiring money in order to travel and not having huge amounts of savings, you're probably better off going into long-term contracts, especially in places like central London, where you're going to need all the money that you can to be able to live and afford accommodation and be able to do the travel you want to do.
So Mindy said, do we need to complete any more training or tests like here, some states? No, there is no sort of formal teacher training. As part of our compliance procedure, we do have a keeping children safe. It's called safeguarding training, which takes about 20 minutes to complete online, and that's part of our stage 2 compliance. And we also do some cybersecurity training as well, so that you're up to date with sort of cybersecurity threats, so that there's no sort of threats to schools and things, and you're aware of it. So they're the sort of 2 training as part of our compliance procedure. And then I can see Phoebe has said, are you better off becoming proficient in Australia before going to the UK? Not necessarily. We advocate for you. We aim to get you paid on the British pay scale, regardless of whether you have proficiency in Australia or not. It's just up to you whether you've got the funds. You'll get, as a beginning teacher or an overseas trained teacher, we will get you paid on the British pay scale on M1, which is the first 2 years of teaching anyway. So it's not an absolute that you need to get proficiency before you go to the UK. And we have many people that are just out of university going straight over to start jobs.
Yeah. And Sarah, in the UK, generally in a long-term position, you're on, set based on years of experience, whereas supply or casual teaching is often a fixed rate that doesn't take into consideration years of experience in the same way. So, yeah, you're generally better off in a long-term position, but we can chat about that in more detail. Alison says, how would you say teacher expectations differ compared to Australia? I've seen people state that UK schools place a higher expectation on teachers in terms of admin and student achievement. I would say it can feel like that. They're quite data driven, but it will depend on the school. There are lots of different types of schools with different types of processes, but you will be given the support that you need to sort of understand their way of working and how to record the data and make sure that the work is up to date. You'll probably think of questions as well once this is finished. So feel free to, when you get your recorded version through to either book a call or to send us through those questions and we can go from there.
Absolutely.
There are a couple of people typing still. Phoebe is asking about opportunities in Wales. We do have an office in Cardiff that works with Cardiff and the valleys that surround Cardiff. You have to be proficient to be able to work in Wales because you need to get British qualified teacher status and then transfer it to the Welsh equivalent. So yeah, if you're a proficient teacher and you want to go and work in Wales, we can definitely talk to you about contract opportunities or supply work more likely in that Cardiff and the Valleys area.
So Thea has asked on the website, is there a list of current positions available just to see the types of schools and their ethos, or is this through independent consultation and partnership only? So it's the latter. We don't put live jobs on our website because it is a very admin heavy thing to do, and the job situation, there's so many jobs coming in and so many jobs being I guess taken off when people are placed. It's very hard to manage jobs coming in and jobs coming off. So we will talk to you individually. You will be able to get a feel for the types of schools and the ethos of the school by looking at the school website, by chatting to us. We'll also provide you with what's called the Ofsted report, which is something that is done, a report that's done by by the Education Department on schools every 3 to 4 years. And it discusses everything from the management of the school to the behaviour of the children, etc. So we'll provide that document to you. You won't need to make any decision about, let's say, working in a long-term contract in a school until you're completely happy. You've thoroughly explored every avenue, including speaking to the school and asking any relevant questions.
And Sarah, with the guaranteed supply contract, it's very much like here. You generally start off working in a range of schools. Schools will request you back. You will tell us which schools you like. And then what will tend to happen is you will be invited back to go regularly to several schools that you're doing well in and that you're enjoying and that the school wants to have. And then organically, there will be offers of work that you can decide to take into longer term contracts. Alison,
you go.
I was just going to say, talking about discrepancies in terms of behaviour, it's really, really similar to working in Australia or New Zealand or Canada. There will be schools from low socioeconomic areas that you might have more challenging behaviour. You might have schools in, that are selective or grammar that are more academic. It will depend on the head teacher. It will depend on the senior leadership. It will depend on the model of teaching. A lot of British schools have gone back to having quite an explicit teaching model. So they're finding that that's a really fantastic way of managing sort of low-level behaviour issues in the classroom. I know that that's sort of coming back into Australian sort of ways of teaching as well. We tend to work with schools that are either seen as Ofsted or outstanding or good. So every school that we put you forward to, we will be able to send you a detailed report of how that school has gone through an independent review in the last few years. And we also work regularly with schools that we know look after teachers and that are supportive and where, teachers actually thrive. So yeah, there's going to be awful, challenging, tough schools, but we tend to work with schools where we know you're going to have a really good experience with teachers, like we've said before. So we're not interested in putting you somewhere where you're not going to stay and the school will be unhappy, and so will you.
Yeah, and Robert said explicit teaching as opposed to inquiry-based learning. Sign me up now. Yes, it is explicit teaching. It's very, the guidelines are very clear, which is, very refreshing. Sometimes, a lot of people say, oh, wow, this is easier than having to think about planning my lessons here in Australia. So
look,
thumbs up to that.
From our experience, we've been, into classrooms in the last 12 months where I've been kind of blown away with the level of kind of good quality behavior where kids understand the rules and are working within that framework. So I certainly would give any teacher that I was working with and that Emma's working with really clear, transparent information. If it is a school where you're going to find kids with challenges, we'll tell you about that, and you'll decide and decide whether or not you want to interview. Some people love that kind of environment, and others don't want anything like that. So yeah. Alison's typing. Just asking about contract expectations. Do you have to sign up for a set period? You can, it's your experience over in the UK. So if you sign up with us and say that you would like us to help you find a position, you will let us know what the goalposts are. Realistically, if you're wanting to start in September, 90% of the jobs available are going to be for that full school year that runs through until the following July. If you're starting in January, most jobs come through from January to July, with an option of then staying on if you're successful at the school and you like it. If you want to switch it up and start as a supply teacher and move into a contract, that's an option. If you want to start in a contract and then move to supply, that's an option. It's just a conversation. So if you want to have the opportunity to have the flight reimbursement, they are set terms. So that's a 2-term contract through us. Whether that's 2 terms worth of supply teaching or a 2-term long-term contract. But other than that, you are absolutely able to use us as an agency for as long as you like. And generally, people work with us for the full time that they're over in the UK.
And there is an opportunity if the school are happy and you're happy to take you direct onto contract. That generally doesn't happen to start with. They're obviously wanting to test you out. And they work, which is why they come through us to start with, because they want to see the quality and how you do. And if everything goes well down the line and your visa doesn't expire and you're wanting to stay longer term, then there is the opportunity to go into a permanent contract with the school.
And there's something quite nice about starting on timesheets through an agency, because if you aren't happy, if there's any changes or if you want some flexibility, then you're able to have a bit more flexibility.
Okay. Any more questions before we end?
If you jump on our website, there's lots of testimonials and videos of teachers that we've been helping, you know, and Emma and I are more than happy to answer any questions. But as we've said several times, it's really great to get in touch and have a chat with you long before you plan to go, so that you understand what is required. There's some compliance side of things and collection of documents and references and things like that, as well as making sure that you're prepared and ready to interview in good time before that season arrives. So yeah,
so
feel
it's
free to
usually
get in touch.
we really engage about 6 months prior with, you know, ramping communication up and being in constant contact, from collecting compliance, getting you a job, supporting you until you step off the plane and start your job in the UK. So 6 months is what we need, as Kath sort of said. Robert is typing, Sarah's typing.
Robert's asking about private schools. A little bit like Australia or New Zealand or Canada, they don't often have a lot of trouble finding local trained teachers, so they don't necessarily look to overseas candidates as a first preference. Doesn't mean that we don't get requests through from time to time, and a lot of our sort of grammar schools or academies or faith schools or even government schools are of a really high caliber. What we were saying earlier, those outstanding and good Ofsted schools that are doing fantastic things and achieving well. Often the more flexible you are on location, so if you're open on location, you don't have a really specific place that you want to live and work, there'll be a more of a range of opportunities for you to look at and to interview for.
He's got a question. Okay, so Thea's asked about whether experience in the UK counts towards experience years under our home states. It doesn't in terms of service, but you are eligible to go up the pay scale, certainly in New South Wales, based on the experience you have in the UK if it's full-time work. And we often have teachers asking us for a letter to prove the fact that you've been in a long-term contract in the UK, so that obviously you can go up the pay scale.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't count towards proficiency in terms of service. It has to be obviously within your home state for that.
Anecdotally, we do hear about a lot of teachers coming back who are, you know, really surprised at how well received having been in the UK and teaching in the British National Curriculum has been when they've applied for jobs or they've gone for promotional positions and things like that. So it's a great way of kind of standing out if you're looking to work in a particular type of school or a particular area. If you've gone over and shown that you're a go-getter and that you're interested in you know, education internationally and different types of teaching, it really does look good on your CV.
So Alison's got a question.
My understanding is if you to apply for QTS, you're required to provide a letter of recommendation from a supervisor principal. You do need to show that you've moved from provisional to proficient. So you do need to have a letter from your state showing that you have moved from provisional to proficient. So yeah.
That would be generally, if you're in New South Wales, it would be from NESA, or, you know, if it was Queensland, it would be Queensland College of Teachers. It's not a recommendation from the principal. It is direct from NESA to prove your professional standing as a professional teacher.
You would have received, when you move from provisional to proficient, you do receive a letter or an,
Yep.
you know, confirmation of you moving into that. So yeah, but feel free to jump and book a call with us if you're not sure of anything.
Wonderful. Okay, anyone have any final questions before we finish for this evening?
All right, cool. Well, thanks for being available and listening live. It's always great to have that Q&A at the end and be able to hear what your questions are.
And we'll look forward to chatting to you each individually if you book a call, and we will send out that video of tonight's presentation over the next few days for all of you to re-watch and, you know, connect with us as well. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It's lovely to meet all of you today.
Bye.
Bye.